long time no see. Seriously, what have you been doing for the past few years?
Oh, what have I been doing? Oh, we've been working with the band, taking care of 2 new members after Joe and Brad left. You know, we got Rick Dufay to take Brad's place, and of course Jimmy Crespo. And basically we've been writing, doing the same thing I did with Joe, only with Jimmy, which is a lot faster. Jimmy doesn't have a lot of extracurricular activities, you know.
Wait a minute, what does that mean? Does that mean Joe did?
Oh, doesn't it?
I don't know, I haven't
Well,
seen
he had a lot of
years.
interests in other departments.
What other departments?
Well, there's Joe Perry's project.
Not while he was with Aerosmith.
Sure. That's what caused the whole breakup.
Okay, why don't we go back a little bit, because I never really talked to you since that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What happened? I mean, you and Joe were a
Well, I don't want to get into depth.
Okay.
You know.
Superficially, then.
Yeah. It was a hot team.
All right.
You know, a little bit about the background between Joe and I. It just started not to work. Okay, it started not to work. It was like a growth. It started nudging my side. I couldn't write with him anymore. He wanted to write himself, and he wanted to be his own superstar. I guess that's what is all behind it. You know, he wanted to be his own frontman. In fact, he's out there right now doing a lot of Aerosmith tunes, singing lead. Are you familiar with the project at all?
I haven't seen him once. No, I haven't talked to him in years. Last time, let me just say this.
Well, see, that's what I'm talking about. Again, he was into so many side trips, you know. Plus, I had that motorcycle accident. You know, I took my fucking heel off, and during that time I was in the hospital. You know, he never really came up. It just the relationship was severed like immediately, especially after the last couple of gigs.
What happens, do you think, with these kind of teams? You know, I can think of others, some that have lasted and some that haven't. In rock and roll, when there's a singer or a front person that gets all the attention and somebody else is kind of bitter, I mean, how do you stay diplomatic about it for as long as you did?
Well, we had our indifferences from just about the get-go, and it kind of makes for a lot of good songs.
Why?
The tension amongst each other. You know?
A lot of bands say that, but what do you mean when you say tension between each other?
There's tension amongst each other.
I mean, competition.
Well, it's not looked at as competition now. I don't sit there and think, oh, Joe just wants to be me. Or I just want to be a guitar player, if that was the case. It doesn't come down like that. You don't sit there thinking that, but you do look at each other and go, arr. Whether it's inside or outside, sometimes comes out into the music, and that's what I'm saying. That did come out in the music on a lot of tracks. Which came for good songs.
Any that you can remember offhand?
What songs?
Yeah. I mean, which songs in
Sick
particular?
Sick as a Dog.
What was behind that?
No, I'm joking. You can start getting in depth with the songs. I don't want to do that.
No, I'm not going to get in depth. Far be it from me to talk about the music.
Just all the way down the line, there was a lot of. Not to say that the songs reeked of that tension either. Tension could have been in the song. Back in the Saddle. You know, we weren't singing about "I'll see you later, have a nice trip, see you next fall." There wasn't any of that type of lyrics in there, or feeling. The song had a nice edge about it, though. I mean, that happens naturally.
How do you think Aerosmith changed when Joe Perry left?
Well, we got Jimmy Crespo. Okay, he was a new fish, so to speak, a new guy on the block. It turns into a new blood, a new force. Everybody starts getting up again, whereas people were dragging their tails before. The other band members saw that he was showing interest, Jimmy. Whereas Joe was getting very bored with the whole thing. Why, I'll never know. Because like I said, he's out there right now doing all Aerosmith tunes, a lot of Aerosmith tunes, a lot more than I would ever thought. Put it to you that way.
Well,
and he's also riding on the wave of Aerosmith. Every time he goes out, it's Joe Perry, formerly of Aerosmith.
He did co-write those songs, though.
Sure did. And so it should be said, but to play all the songs, it's a tough nut.
Was there ever a time that you thought that the band wouldn't continue when he left?
Mm-mm.
Do you feel as long as you are in this band, there's still Aerosmith?
Positively. I know I'm the driving force.
Do they just sort of do what you want them to do?
No, not at all. Not at all. But I do know that I'm some sort of a capper to it all. You know, like my relationship with Jimmy. You know, he comes along with some real fine licks, real fine licks. And when I get together with him and arrange the music and put words to it all, it's like the capper, or going out and being the front man. It's the capper. You know, it's the head on the beer.
Were you used to writing with somebody? Is that why you wanted to write with Jimmy, or do you just need to write with somebody else?
I need to write with somebody else. I can write by myself, which I have. You know, Dream On, Mark In. But I prefer to write with somebody else. It goes a lot quicker. And not only that, but the other people have a lot to say. One of the main reasons. You know, you're a band, you stick together.
So, anyway, what really happened over the past 3 years? Because there were all these rumors that you were not in very good shape. You were having trouble recording.
Not trouble recording. Things were going slow. Things were going slow as far as going from changing producers. We changed with Tony Bon Jovi. There was a lot of tightness in the band just from being a fresh new thing, you know, with some of the things going around. We did bounce from studio to studio. We wound up in Florida, Criteria Studios, and then we wound up with Jack Douglas again. So, I mean, that's a lot of time in between that, you know, everybody went through their own trips in their heads, you know. I mean, when you get to be my age and you've been on the road for so fucking long, and you go back home, it's a whole other world. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I know exactly.
It's not the old road life again. So you get back and
what do you mean your age? How old are you?
22.
Really? How old are you?
No, I don't mean it as far as your age. Your age in the band. 12 years for this band. When you go off the road, it's a whole brand new thing.
Were you burnt out?
No, I wouldn't say so. I've been burnt out after a tour. But when we came off the road, when this thing happened with Joe Perry, it certainly wasn't the end of the tour. It was as far as Joe Perry went.
All right, wait, now.
I was not jonesing out, so to speak. Well, every meteor comes to an end where they burn the flame out. That's like at the end of a tour. And you want to just take it light and rest. This band was 3 albums behind. So rather than go back out on the road, we decided to stay in and write and do our homework. So we had a good time about it. It took our damn time.
Doing this album that now came out.
This album, we got at least 2 other albums under our belt, worth of songs.
Tell me about the other member of the band that joined.
Rick Dufay.
Yeah.
He had a single album, a solo album of his own out before. He's a friend of Jack Douglas's. Jack, I believe, met him in L.A. and saw something in his music and decided to produce him. So Jack was doing this, I guess, a long time ago. Rick's album's already like 6, 7 years old, isn't it? Or you don't know of him? And I don't know if he's played in any bands around town. But he's good, he looks good, and he fits in well.
Why never just Steven Tyler? Why Aerosmith?
Because I like a band. I like to be in a band. I like the feeling of family. I like that warm cloak of friendship, you know, around everybody. I just like that. You know, to go up and do a solo thing right now it's something that's in my mind, something I've always wanted to do from the beginning. But I still like the feeling of being on stage and turning around and seeing the boys.
Why? If you did a solo thing, how would it be different? I mean, wouldn't it... in a way, it's the same thing. If it's you, if you feel Aerosmith is basically you, what
it
would you
isn't basically me. A lot of people see it as that. But how would it be different? I don't think I'd go out with the band and have it Tippy Canoe and Tyler 2, the album. It's Tyler's solo album. I wouldn't go out as that and then go out with the band. I'd get a bunch of different people together, you know, and see what kind of stops I could pull. You know, that's the whole idea of doing a solo album, is working with other people, right? Seeing how far you can spread your talent amongst other people and within yourself.
Do you feel a need with Aerosmith to do music that's very kind of hard-rocking music, and that sort of romantic, more ballad side of you is something that gets submerged a bit. I mean, you take a song like Dream On, for example. I mean, has that been your biggest hit to date?
No, it hasn't. I don't believe it has.
Come Together was it?
No, Come Together wasn't. I think Walk This Way, Sweet Emotion. Those have been...
Dream On
might have been the biggest.
Dream On is almost like your Stairway to Heaven or something, isn't it? It's kind of like a classic. And you wrote that yourself, and that's more of a romantic.
But I always put a little romanticism on the albums. I put Mia on Night in the Ruts. I put, on this album, I did a song called, I don't know how romantic it is. It's Barroom Romance. Push Come to Shove. That's a song I wrote. And Cry Me a River, of course, is it? You like?
Yeah, I love it. When you started to sing it, I mean, when I first heard it on the record, I started thinking, oh, what's he going to do this like really a la Frank Sinatra?
Sure.
And then, of course, all comes the shrieking, and no, it's great.
You like how it went right to it?
Yeah, it's a great.
Well, you see, that's always been my style as far as even the romantic side. Dream On is another nice floating thing, but in the middle it just bends right over and it's just kick ass. It's, you know, which is it's like fucking. Okay, it's like an orgasm. The music peaks and comes, so to speak, to a place where it just explodes. And I try to do that in all my ballads. You know, in fact, I try to incorporate a lot of rock in the ballads as well. I'm right here.
What? I know, I'm just looking at the meters, that's all. Where do you think Aerosmith fits now?
It's going to make its own niche again like it did before. I mean, we were definitely a species of our own. You know, there's thoroughbred in here. Not thoroughgood, thoroughbred. And where does it fit? Where's it going to fit? It's just going to go out and kick ass like... There's not many out there doing it now.
What do you think they're doing?
Aerosmith. They're doing their own style. I mean, I know what our music is about.
You looking forward?
I think when I think of Aerosmith, I think of when the Zeppelin first came out. Okay, they were like 4 gigs in, and they went to Boston. It's good background music, Lisa. When they went to Boston, and they played the Tea Party, and they were so new. The plant was so new, and they did a whole lot of love, and they just kicked ass on stage. Well, that's what Aerosmith does. It's just such a raunchy, good time rock and roll band. You know, it's not, I don't want to cite examples here right now, but there's a lot of bands out there that one song after another, it sounds the same. Now, I hope I'm not biased. I don't think there's anybody out there that can say an Aerosmith song, they all sound the same. But there are a few bands out there right now that are on the top that it just sounds like a continuation from the song before. Format rock.
Were you aware in making this record that you wanted it to sound like some of your earlier, more successful albums? I mean, because it does have that kind of a sound to it as opposed to some of the more recent ones that you've done.
The more recent ones, the Draw the Line,
Night in the Ruts.
and Night in the Ruts, was, you know, you could be a band for so long and then try to break the mold again and go off and do things that were usually outtakes from the other albums. Turn it around and try to do something new. Something that you know ordinarily the band members would say, no, let's not do that song. Let's just do this one because that's an ass kicker and let's leave it. It's just trying to spread your wings a little further, you know, and just taking off on that. Whereas this album here is Jailbait, and it's like there's a lot of good rock and roll on it. Nice hard rock.
Were you conscious of going back to something, though, or don't you
conscious?
think that way?
Yeah, we were conscious of keeping the car at a certain mileage. Certain speed. It was definitely right up there above 100 most of the time. Even the ballads. Even Push Comes to Shove, you know, is still somewhere up here. You know, where the other albums have always been. I've always made sure that they've been like not the same thing. You know, going from one place to another all the time. This album has got a little bit more rock and roll to it. and danceable rock and roll. It's not all toys in the attic, rats in the cellar. Train kept a rolling type energy. It's right in the middle. So again, it's new. It's new for us to do this, but it's working. As you said, it sounds like other albums. Rocks, toys in the attic.
It's not that it sounds like other albums. It sounds like that Aerosmith sound of the kind of, you know, mid-'70s Aerosmith sound that it's most hard rocking, you know.
Well,
and so I just wondered if that was something that you had missed recently and were consciously aware of wanting to return to.
Yeah, yes, but again, I've been writing with Jimmy Crespo, and over the years, it's not that we haven't been playing. We did a tour in '80 with Jimmy Crespo, March, April, May, January, February, with Jimmy. We did big arenas, big halls, and so he's played Aerosmith. He's got the flavor, he's got the taste in his mouth of Aerosmith, and this album is just an extension of me being who I am, and Jimmy coming around to what Aerosmith is. He's always had it inside of him, but never had a band to get it out the way this band does. So it works. So as far as it being a conscious thing, it definitely was. If you saw the studios that we went from and did the Jailbait and one up in Boston, up in the woods, and then brought it down here and did it again, you'll see the stages of the songs, the way they changed, and I guess when you say Aerosmith sound, there's a lot of pissed offness in this album as well. There's a lot of, oh yeah, you know. We had quite a time recording this album.
Good or bad?
It was just an experience and a half.
Took a long time.
Mm-hmm. It certainly did, but I think it was well worth it. Wouldn't you say?
Yes. Would you say that you're surprised by the quick success that it seemed to have? What is it? It's like something 30-something on the charts.
The Super Bullet, yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised.
Why? What did you think was going to happen? Were you nervous?
Sure. The other albums, I attribute a lot of I attribute the fact that they didn't climb the charts to not touring. There's going to be a tour behind this album.
Yeah, but you're not touring yet.
No, we will be in 2 or 3 weeks.
I know, but that doesn't matter in terms of this having taken off
Oh,
already.
because I think people are getting, number one, they've missed the band. You know, we put that space in between. They missed the band. Yeah, I do.
I think a lot of people who are buying this record probably never saw the band.
I know for a fact that up for the last year, there's been stations, as I read the Gavin report and the whole business, there's been stations that have been playing the shit out of Aerosmith. More than usual in the last 3 years.
What are they playing?
Some obscure cuts, believe it or not. They've been playing Nobody's Fault, Last Child, Back in the Saddle, still, of course, Dream On. PLJ's been on Dream On and Walk This Way for a long time. But, you know, being away for so long also gives you a chance to turn around and look at what the hell's going on, what's been going on, and what we did in the past, and what's happening now. And I think the kids just want to hear some rock and roll again. So after this album came out a week or two, a lot of the stations got on it more than were on it when it first came out. Kids got to hear it, like you say, there's kids out there this time around that you don't think ever saw Aerosmith.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Kids who are maybe 14 years old now, maybe, who are buying records or going to concerts or watching MTV or whatever they're doing, who might not have been 11 years old the last time they saw you, or 10.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know what to say about that. Could be the airplay.
Do you ever feel dated? Did you ever wonder about where you fit and what you were going to do?
No, I never felt dated, except when we were on the road. Shit. When we were on the road, going on and off and on and off.
You want to lean back on this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pull it more towards you.
When we were on the road, we'd do 8 months, and we'd come off the road and do an album, and then it was 8 months again, 6 months, and do an album. Do you start feeling dated then? You don't really know what the hell's going on.
That's not what I meant.
What do you mean?
I meant, did you ever consider cutting your hair? Did you ever consider changing your style? Did you ever think about what Aerosmith was doing in relation to everything that's happened in music in the past 5 years? Because basically what you're doing in terms of being a hard rock band is pretty much what you were doing in 1975, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look the same.
Mm-hmm. Do we feel like changing?
Well, no. Did
I
you
think
ever?
the music
Did you
changed.
worry about being out of date? Did you worry,
No.
particularly during those 3 years when maybe you weren't doing anything, and you looked around and you saw the whole punk and the new wave thing happen? Where did you think Aerosmith fit in that, or did you feel like you were just going to ride it out?
We're going to ride it out because Aerosmith is and has been for the last 12 years, 10 years. It's a society. It's all the kids that are into Aerosmith, the majority of them know us from before. And we've been around for so long that it's an entity of its own. It's its own little gang, so to speak, its own club. So when you start changing with the trends that are going on, these people came into the business with the change. But for us to change, I mean, you know, did the Who do that? I mean,
Well, they cut their hair.
well, Daltrey. But I don't see any reason to cut my hair. I always liked it long. Fits with the music. I don't think there's a need. The kids aren't going to not like it because it's long.
I didn't mean.
I've
Yeah, I didn't mean because the kids. I just meant for yourself.
No,
like
no,
if you ever
wouldn't.
questioned your own place.
No,
in
because
this.
Aerosmith's a society. It's been for so long. You know, there's a culture out there. It's 10 years. It's one of the biggest bands in the United States, the biggest band. And so.
You feel you're the biggest band in the United States?
Sure. Well, we're going to be again. Okay. Weren't we before?
I mean, I guess there was a time that certainly was true when you were out there playing and
so
building that
we're going
kind
out
of
to
following.
play again.
But did it?
You get the whole ballpark. You get the whole thing. You get the airplay, and you get the people seeing the band as well. Get the full picture on it all.
You looking forward to going out on the road again?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Really?
Yes.
Living out of suitcases and being in hotels. And
no, I miss it.
Do?
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take before you missed it?
I was in the hospital for like 6 months, with this foot.
This is after the motorcycle.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and it starts creeping in. Then the band was rehearsing and sending me up tapes of things that they were playing, and Christ, I missed it right away. But then again, having a new band and sitting around writing songs, was a good experience. I mean, we have such a pile of songs now.
You have not been on the road with this band?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah,
I said we did a small tour
right,
at
clubs
the beginning of '80.
Right.
No, it wasn't clubs.
Well, it wasn't
we did a club tour and we did
Yeah.
arenas. Oh yeah, with Jimmy Crespo. Beginning of 1980.
And what happened with that? Was there some problem?
It was great. The kids went apeshit. They loved it. Not many people know about the tour.
Where was I? What happened? Why did?
I don't
What do you
know.
mean not many people know about it? Why don't they?
Well, first of all, it wasn't a major tour. It was all of 2 months or so. And a lot of the kids that didn't know that Joe had left, or the stragglers, just thought that was Joe up there. I just heard that again. It was pretty funny. But when you play the big halls, the kids in the back can't really see the face. They just see the hair. Jimmy's got dark hair like Joe. And the sound was still Aerosmith. So it worked. The tour was great.
Getting back to your own doubts, perhaps, or anything that you personally went through during this time when you weren't really actively involved with the music scene. Did you ever think that maybe audiences wouldn't respond to Aerosmith again? That it had just been something that was kind of a part of the past and you'd done it and that was it?
Yeah, but it never bothered me. If I ever had doubts about that, I wouldn't be able to sleep, If I ever had doubts that we wouldn't be able to come back after playing the biggest of big places and, the biggest crowd in L.A., what's that place in Detroit? Pontiac. You were there. Weren't you there at Pontiac?
I only been to Pontiac once for the Super Bowl. They hadn't built it when I was out with you. It was much earlier.
But
I hadn't seen
you get that in your
before
head.
Joe.
I guess that's been a while, hasn't it?
I mean, don't you?
3 years is a long time to me, especially to be off the road.
I didn't mean that you had doubts in terms of not being able to sleep because then you wouldn't do it. I meant, did you ever think of just packing it in, doing something else?
Sure, I got really PO'd at times and just said the hell with it, no more of this, and thought about just going out and producing. I produced this album with Jack Douglas. I've been producing Aerosmith albums all the way down the line.
I know, but Stephen, honestly, you not be in the spotlight? I mean, how could you seriously consider that?
Well, now you just pushed me into telling you that I did once.
That you did once what?
Feel that way.
Right, I didn't push you into it.
Oh, well, it's not something that, like I say, I don't entertain those thoughts.
Yeah.
They just, I've always been up there in my own head. And, I'm sure there's a lot of egomaniac inside that just keeps you going. So I never really...
If you were to define what it was that you thought Aerosmith was, what would you say? That makes it special and different from any other rock band?
It's hard to say. It's something that... It's good old rock and roll as a base. The bed, the foundation of it, with with the expertise of the musicians that are in the band that know how to take something, polish it up, and then throw it out, so it doesn't have that feeling of clean and all right. It's still got the dirty tinge and the rust around the edges. It's just Aerosmith. I can't explain it.
What kind of tour are you doing?
It's called I Love It, I guess. Kind of tour. It's a 31 city. It's take us about 2 months. It's going to be a small, short tour. It's going to be till the end of December, and then we go back in the studio. And by then we should have these videos out. We've got a bunch of good things on the line.
What kind of videos?
Well, right now we're talking with Jack Douglas and somebody that's affiliated with George Lucas. It's going to be a 3D video. It's going to be the first one anyone's ever done.
That's a great idea. Why hasn't anybody else ever done one?
I don't. Well, maybe because of the price.
Oh, really?
Whew, is it up there?
Really?
I just came back from a shoot in Chicago, where the staging that we're having is going to be a lot of scaffolding. It's going to look like an apartment building behind us. That's where a lot of the lighting is going to be, as well as the Aerosmith logo, and the name is going to drop down. But up in there, there's going to be a three-dimensional head that is singing back and forth. We just did lightning strikes. At the beginning, it's a cop looking down, and I come around the ramp. There's a whole setup. It's going to be the first tour we ever used a lot of staging. Or not a lot. We're utilizing the 3D thing. So it's just Aerosmith, but when you look up and you see this 8-foot head talking, and you can look around it in the back, it's got a cap on and hair and the whole business. It's going to be a hell of a visual. But again, it's going to be for lightning strikes. Basically it was made for the video that we're doing. It's a concept thing, for lightning strikes. The boys and the Dukes ready to rumble.
Are you've become actively involved in that sort of thing? I mean, videos obviously are such an important promotional tool at this point now, with the way kids are watching MTV and stuff like that. How do you feel about, well, not only video stuff, but just in terms of radio? It's kind of hard for me to discuss this really much because obviously this show goes out on radio stations. But just in terms of what's happening with the music business. I mean, as you said, Aerosmith's been around now for, 12 years. So you've seen an awful lot of things happen and come and go and change. And once again, everybody's saying how rock is dead, finished. How do you feel about all of that stuff?
Well, I guess, isn't that kind of obvious with the way we felt about it before and kept it alive?
You single-handedly are going to keep it alive?
Why not? I mean, not keep it alive, but I'm sure we're going to spawn a whole other age of rock and roll people again. I mean, if it died, are you saying that it's kind of dying right now?
I don't feel it's dying, actually. I think that what's dying is the complacency in terms of the executives in the companies who are all panicking that they're going to lose their expense accounts. I mean, I always think the music and the energy has been there, and it just sort of recycles itself every few years. I haven't been an old boy in the last 5 years because I like a lot of the new music. I just don't think that there's a tremendous amount of outlets for it. You know what I mean? I just think that radio's awfully tight. Yeah, that's true.
And the radio, you're not kidding with the
programming. I mean, college radio is think it ultimately has to turn around, but I don't care what I
It's
say.
gonna.
I'm interested in what you
It's
say.
got to again, doesn't it?
I
It
hope
gets so tight, the string gets so wound, it's got to snap. You know? And with the way things are going now, a lot of the new wave bands have been out for so long, they're finally getting a little polish on them. You know? I mean, even the bands that don't, I love it. I mean, look at the Stray Cats out there, like that. That's a great band.
But the Stray Cats had to go to England without a record contract in order to get recognized. You know what I mean? It's like somebody now without a name trying to get played on the radio in America. It's pretty tough.
The
Certainly
economy,
without a
you
record
know,
contract.
well, no money, you can't.
Yeah.
Video costs $40,000-$50,000. A regular video.
It doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't. But who are you going to get to do it nowadays? Everybody bitches and complains about. I'm not taking a thing. That's exactly what the film costs. Boyd. Well, you know what.
What's your stage show going to be like?
It's going to be the same thing. It's going to be the same rock and roll, the same antics. I mean, you know, it was pretty much straightforward. It wasn't ever anything that was contrived or, you know, what are you going to do next time?
Do you miss it?
Sure.
Really?
Sure.
Can you, like, not wait to get out there again?
Oh, Jesus, I can't. I'm dying. Just
When's the first date?
Just doing these videos, you know, I get so excited about it. First date is 18th of November. Tickets, we sold, let's see, tickets went on sale for Detroit last weekend.
Where are you playing in
And
Detroit?
in the first hour, we sold 80 out of 200,000.
200,000? Where are you playing?
I don't know, it's one of the arenas out there. 2 nights, I believe.
Couldn't be.
No,
That
not people.
200,000.
200,000. I'm talking about Gelt.
Oh, money. Oh, I never
Mhm.
know what that means. What, Cobo Hall?
No, it's not Cobo. It's another place.
What about New York? What are you playing in New York?
We'll either do Meadowlands or the Garden, I'm sure.
When?
I don't know. It'll be in December, though, for sure. For sure. We're going from here, working our way down to Texas, and then over, and into L.A., I think. The tour it's not completely together yet, the bookings. For the last 3 years, only because we haven't been on the road. Of course, it's an outlet for everybody to say, oh, he's been strung out, and he's fucked up, and he's this and that, but we've been, on the same hand, we've been writing, we've been in studios, we've been trying different things out, working out with Jack, you know. It's when you go to another producer, okay, you got to start from the beginning again. You know, he has to kind of grasp what was going on with the other people's minds, and because he comes in the middle of an album, you don't want it to sound one particular producer did this and then another one did that. You don't want a big jump in the middle.
Who had you worked with?
Tony Bon Jovi.
On this record?
Yes.
Any of the finished cuts, ones that he did?
Tony Bon Jovi, we cut most of the basics with him over at the power station, right? And we finished the album up. We did a lot of the vocals. We did a lot of overdubbing down in Florida and here at the record plant. So it took a long time. This album we worked on a year.
But what I'm
but
saying
it
is,
wasn't
when
as
did
if
Jack
we were in
come
the studio, okay? We weren't in the studio for a whole year. It was on and off. It would have
When
cost
did Jack
$10 million
come
to be in the studio for a year. You know, all in all, it took about 6-7 months.
When did Jack come in on it then? And why?
Jack came in, good grief, about 7-8 months ago, because I was happy with how can I say this? I was happy with the way Tony Bon Jovi put us down. He was an engineer as well. And when we laid the basic tracks, Tony had a lot of input. You know, it was real quick, so we got solid, raw, rough us. But I didn't think that was enough. You know, he didn't milk the rat completely. It just, it needed a little bit more. So I decided to go back again, get Jack Douglas, along with the fact that I knew that I would have a lot to do with it as well as co-producing the album. You know.
What happens you're a veteran of all those years on the road, and then, as you said, you got bored over the past 3 years not being on the road. Do you think it's just something that you become addicted to? I mean, you need that constant motion and that constant attention, and that when somebody such as yourself, who's used to all that, sort of stops for a bit, for whatever the reason is, you know, band personnel changes, lifestyle changes, anything. Is it real tough to deal with? I mean, you're just like kind of counting the days till you're back on stage again?
Yeah, because you're so used to living that way. You're so used to getting up and in the hotel room and going out, and it's like throwing a party every night for 30,000 people. Do you get used to that? Hell yeah.
You think that's good? Steve,
sure it is. It is, because what's wrong with keeping a good thing going?
Well, Steve Winwood was talking to me, interesting, because he'd been on the road since he was 15, and he said he knew of no other life, and to him there was like nothing else was real anymore, and that he needed to completely get off the road because he wanted to find out that there were other things out there.
It's very true. Like you said before, you asked me before, did I ever want to pack it in and produce? Yeah, because there is a lot of bullshit out there, and if you're on the road for more than a year, okay, big time, it starts eating you away for sure. It does, and you do want to go home. But I find that going back home and hanging out at the dock or hanging out, where do you hang out? Where can you go without getting hassled? So it's the life that you chose, and it's something I got very much used to and liked. I mean, there really wasn't that much BS out there that wanted me to stay away completely. I could handle with it. I could deal it.
When you say you go home, and where can you go without getting hassled? You live in the country, don't you?
Yeah, but it's just too quiet. It's like going from, the desert to 42nd Street.
Well, Mick Jagger lives in New York, I mean, what if you lived in a city? How hassled do you think you'd get?
That's a good question. I lived on 76th Street, West Side, all of last year, for a year and a half, as a matter of fact. And it's a quiet neighborhood. I would work my way over to for the times I would be up. See, I'm nocturnal. I don't get up until 6 o'clock at night. So the times I would be out and make my way over to Broadway would be.
I was just looking at the clock. You're up now.
Would be
6 o'clock.
Well, that's because we haven't been on the road for a long time, and it's Interviewville. Well, you know that. I'm also not out in the street, but I love it. I mean, what can I say? It's something I miss very much.
So what happened when you were
Especially when you got a new show and you want to go, yeah, look at this. You want to flex your muscle. It's been a while.
Yeah. So what happened when you walked around in the West 70s?
After a while you have to go out with somebody, because just how much, hey, where's Joe Perry?
Really?
Hey, Aerosmith. Hey, Tyler.
Jagger walks
autographs.
the streets all the time, and I mean, in New York people are cooler than that.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that it's not like being on the road when you're doing a tour and you go out of your hotel room. It's not quite like that. It's comfortable.
How has your life? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No. It's comfortable, but.
It's comfortable, but in the long run, living in New York City, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. As far as it being cool, and especially up. I don't like to go to clubs too much. And living in the country, you're completely locked away from anything that has any reason or rhyme to what you've been doing in the past as far as rock and roll goes. So it's way out of bounds.
You once told me that you used to use 3 coats of moisturizer because you weren't playing so much when you were on tour.
3 coats of moisturizer?
Moisturizer to prevent, your skin drying out too much. You look really good. What have you been doing to take care of yourself?
4 coats of moisturizer.
Oh, that's it?
Did I tell you that? 4?
Yes.
I told you I drank a lot of water.
You also said moisturizer. To prevent crow's feet, I think it was.
What have I been doing? I've been running a lot.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So boring.
It's boring, but when you've got outtakes and new songs to listen to in your headphones, when you're running, it's It's a new world.
You run around with one of those things?
Oh, yeah.
Where? In the country, I would hope, not New York City.
I run the park before it gets dark sometimes.
You're one of those ones that I see as I'm driving by in a taxi.
I haven't in a long time. Besides which, when I run, I got this thing.
Wait a minute. Where are you going while we're doing this?
No, I got this thing. This is the greatest.
What is that?
It's one of these. One of these things. So you're
So now you look like that picture Lee Black Charles took of you with a gun. That's exactly what you were wearing in that.
What, one of these things?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. I have a reprint from NME from years ago.
Oh, this is it. This is the way to do it.
Okay, here, come in front of the microphone again, just for a couple more questions, and I'll let you go. Your life has changed since we last spoke. You got married, you have a child.
Mm-hmm.
How has that affected you? How has that changed things for you? Again, your life has changed since we last talked. You got married, and you have a child. You have a daughter who's 3, Mia.
Yeah.
How has that changed things for you?
Well, it filled the gap that I always wanted. I always wanted a kid, you know. Plus, I always wanted to keep something around, keep the family going, me being the boy of the family. And I fell in love, and it filled the void of sitting around, going from one to the other to the other. It was just something that I always wanted, and it hasn't taken away. It's definitely completed the circle as far as I'm concerned.
How did it change your life, though? Did it calm you down a bit?
Living with 2 girls, living with two of the craziest girls in the world, calm me down.
How's your daughter crazy?
Oh God, it's the mold, Lisa. The mold she came from. Sorinda and I. How is she crazy?
Well, how are the 2 of you as responsible parents? Are you?
Sure.
I mean, do you do all those kind of traditional things like,
No,
change diapers and read to her and all that
sure.
stuff?
Sure enough. Sorinda's doing a hell of a job. She misses the fast lane a lot.
Does she?
Sure. It's funny, I turned on MTV last week, and I hadn't seen Sorinda in 2 weeks. And I turned on the TV, and there was Bowie doing Gene Genie, and Sorinda was in the back there. So, she misses it a lot. But it's not all that hard. You don't figure that you don't look at it like, well, I've got to put a few hours aside. It's that love that I was without by being on the road. From going to one to the other to the other. There was a lot of emptiness. A lot of
You once told me that's why you got involved with rock and roll, though. You said it all had to do really with sex and girls and cars and...
Sure, it's still there, only now it's in the music. I vented it that way. I even remember the interview that I did with you, and I told you all that. It was on the plane.
Right.
That was a long time ago.
Wow.
It was.
Well, don't you think it's interesting to watch people sort of grow up or grow or change or get older or whatever you want to call it in rock and roll? I mean, you be around a band like the Stones now, and I mean, forget it, they're all with their families, even not necessarily perhaps on the road, but I mean, so many people in rock and roll just don't lead that kind of life anymore. That whole kind of temporary transient, picking somebody else up every night.
Don't lead it?
They don't. No, not the bands that are getting older that have families that are more settled down.
Well, obviously not. But you notice it doesn't stop them from putting out some kick-ass rock and roll, does it?
No.
Hasn't bothered the Stones any.
No. Are you gonna...
It's another side of life, that you don't know until you do it. And then it's, how do you explain your love, for that,
What about when you're on the road? How are you going to deal with your family? Are they going to come with you?
Sure, to a certain extent, but there's also time for you where you need to be with the boys. I'm a firm believer in that.
Rod Stewart said that his wife never liked when he was on the road with the boys.
No,
it always
they don't.
caused
They get very
big
jealous.
problems in his marriage.
Uh-huh.
So how do you handle
And
that?
that's been a major breakup of a lot of bands. Has been their wives and so forth and so on. But Serinda doesn't, she doesn't mind. And I can imagine that other people in the band as well, they know their place. There's a time for to be out with the boys and rock and roll, which is what keeps it all going. And there's a time to be with your wife and so forth. And there's a way to mingle it and make it work. You have to see a lot of their way as well. You understand?
Yes, of course. I'm just wondering if, when you go out on this tour, I suppose it's something I should ask you in 2 months, but if some of the things that you're looking forward to, or some of the things that you used to have on the road, that might not be enough. Do you know what I mean? It's like that maybe your expectations of what you're going to get from being out on the road and on tour are expectations that are based on memories that might not be fulfilled because you might have gone past that.
Well, let's wait and see. I'm not going to sit here and worry about it.
I don't mean worry. I mean just how much of being on the road and how much of the excitement of that kind of thing has to do with temporary relationships and picking up and moving from town to town, and a lot of that might have been replaced in your life now by a certain kind of stability and family and things, or that's still there?
I think the stability has kept me going all these years. What did you say?
Before you were married. Yeah, no, temporary relationships. I mean, before you were married was really most of the time when you were on the road, right? So what you remember is a different person in a way, no? I mean, I'm not saying you're a different person after you're married and you become a father and you settle down, because you're not really settled down. But, and you don't become old in the head just because you have a family. But some of the things that you remember from being on the road are from kind of almost really another life, no?
Sure, yeah, and those things should stay in your mind for remembering. Looking back and reminiscing on it. It's going to be a whole new thing this time out, I'm sure. I'm not going to go out and expect to fill Pontiac Stadium again, but I am sure as hell going to go out and expect to have a good time.
What do people ask you the most now about Aerosmith? What do you think they think? Where do they think of it?
A lot of people, because we haven't been around, think that the band's broken up and that, well, can you do it again and all that. All I can say is let's wait and see.
Well, you've almost proved that, haven't you, with this record?
I would think so. I said there asking the questions.
Yeah. I can't believe people still talk to you about Joe.
Oh, jeez,
But Joe, that seems like such ancient history.
You know why? Because they have nothing else better to ask.
Well, actually, you never really made any statements on it, did you? Did you ever go through like a round of interviews where you discussed it and explained it? Oh, see, I don't remember that. I missed out on that.
Well, I just told you. It's as simple as that. He wanted to go out on his own. He was pushed by outside forces to be somebody that I don't think Joe is. It's like when I was with Joe, I used to think that I would be nothing without him. Of course, that proved different. Sure, you get that kind of relationship with each other. That's what kept us going all those years. But as soon as he thought that he could go out and do it on his own, which he very well still might, he split. He went off. Again, it was a family break.
Have you talked to him since?
On and off. But, he's still awful touchy upstairs about that. So, I just say God bless the guy and let him go on about his own business. Was
there ever any discussion of him rejoining?
There was I met with Joe a year and a half, 2 years ago, to write with him again. And we got along great. I had a real good time. But there was that feeling inside again of, of course I wanted to sit down and say, what are you doing? How come you're not, don't you miss it at all? And the answers that rolled off his tongue weren't, I know Joe is a different person, okay? I've known him for all these years. I knew him way back when we were all nothing and just straight out of the box. And I just see a different person than he is right now, And I think that he could flaunt his expertise a little bit better if he was in a band where the members all were tight and there was no uptightness going on. if it was just a tight unit as a band, I think that's where he would flourish the most and grow.
What happened with Brad?
Brad decided to go out with what's Nugent's lead singer?
Oh.
Derek St. Holmes.
St. Holmes, right.
And there was blowing in the wind. Somebody came up with the idea that Derek should do a solo album as well, so they called it Whitford St. Holmes. And Brad went out on that idea, and it worked, I suppose, for a while. And he just stuck with it, like a new band again. And I think he just built up a rapport with Derek, because Derek is another guitar player, and tried to start writing songs together. As you know, Brad and I, we wrote Last Child together, but we didn't really write that much together. So I think that he just felt the need of companionship with another guitar player, and went out on his own with Whitford St. Holmes. Now he's I don't know what he's doing. I think he's out with Rex. It's a strange animal. It's a strange thing. This whole, the way that goes. But I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Okay.
I'm really tired of talking about those guys.
All right. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Lisa.